Awesome.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. Ed and Leo, thanks for joining.
You bet.
You know, esports is obviously near and dear to the three of us, but I think it's still kind of crossing the chasm in the United States. You know, maybe we could start out, you guys could give your backgrounds. You know, you're both at seminal companies, but I think it's like a lifelong journey for all of us. So maybe you could walk us through that. Ed, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So right now I work at EA. I run strategy for our competitive gaming division, which is basically our esports division. You know, we're pretty young. We're in our second year, and we're going against a lot of the other big publishers who are all doing really cool things, and we get to work with awesome platforms like Facebook. Before this, I was on the venture side, so at a company called the Turnin Group as an EIR. You know, I was looking at investing and acquiring esports teams and startups and things like that. I've got a little bit of experience across the industry on the Twitch and YouTube influencer marketing side. You know, did a stint at a startup called Vulcan. That's, you know, a daily fantasy startup for esports, and I've been involved in the space for a while, and I obviously love it.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Leo. Hey everybody, I'm Leo. Nice to see you. Thank you for having us. I've been in the games business for about 18 years or so. Been a gamer my entire life. I think, you know, prior to Facebook, the joke for me is I've worked at almost every gaming company out there. I was at EA as well. I was at BioWare working on Star Wars. But, you know, my journey has just been a huge passion about games and what we do and trying to bring that passion to the world.
That's awesome. What I'm really excited about for this panel is you guys are from the two, I would say, biggest gravity centers, you know, the game developers and then also the streaming giants, right? And as we talk about esports, the name of the panel is the next billion-dollar industry. Maybe you could give a sense to the audience about, you know, why we're so excited about esports, why it's growing, like the numbers. You know, Ed, you know, if you could walk us through some of them, or Leo.
Sure. You want to start? Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think on the publisher side, for any of these public companies, you look at the increase in the stock price and the market cap, right? And what is that really driven by? So game companies have always made money by selling games, but I think a lot of them have begun this push into live services. And live services is stuff like subscriptions and microtransactions, and it's also other ways to connect with the audience and keep them engaged in the game, right? You see what a lot of these publishers are doing with franchising, with leagues, and they're seeing the ROI on the investment they're putting into fostering this top level of professional play. I think that's great. If you look at the overall market, you know, I think there was a stat in the Esports Observer where last quarter there were a reported $60 million in funding put into esports startups.
Wow.
You know, that's happening for a reason, right? People are seeing the ROI, and when we're talking, I've talked to a lot of VCs and private equity funds who are so passionate because they see it's capturing this young demographic, and people are obviously very engaged and very fanatical. You look at some of these esports team valuations; they're increasing at, you know, multiple times year over year at a much faster clip than some of these traditional sports franchises, right? And you look at, how did Cowboys become worth $2 billion? I think one day we hopefully will be asking about Cloud9 and TSM.
That's awesome.
Does everybody here know what we're talking about when we say like this whole crazy thing of people watching people play games? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Just wanted to be sure. So a couple of quick stats to add. I would say, you know, did you know that there are over 2.4 billion gamers on the planet? Number one. And did you know that in 2015, more people watched for more time League of Legends than watched NASCAR or the NHL? You know, so this gaming stuff, it's a thing. There's 750 million people around the world every month who like to watch other people play games. It's crazy. You know, we have a big platform and a lot of passionate folks. We've said that there are over 800 million gamers that are on Facebook, playing either Facebook connected games or playing games on the platform. But when you hit numbers like those and stats like those and the passion that drives the games industry, like it's a pretty phenomenal thing to be thinking about esports.
So Ed, the big news this year, you know, in terms of esports is it's attempting to really lodge itself in the US, right? We know how big it is in Asia, but the Overwatch League launching this year was a big seminal moment. And I'm curious for you as, you know, one of the leaders at EA, how is EA thinking about this? Do you guys plan on launching your own leagues? Do you think that this is kind of now table stakes to gather that attention of gamers? How do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I think number one, anytime another publisher does something big and awesome, I think we take note and we try to figure out, what's driving it, like what can we do to accommodate that. But I think what's more important for us at EA is we have this common theme within our competitive gaming division, right? It's that our vision is to make stars of all of our players, right. And I think what the Overwatch League is doing, what League of Legends is doing is great. They're taking this top 0.001% of top gamers and elevating them and creating the spectator sport. I think where we're at is we look at our games and how accessible they are, right? They're E for everyone. They're games that are much easier to understand than maybe some of these other esports we're talking about. We look at Madden and FIFA, and they're really games for everybody. And we want to make sure that the 12-year-old that's playing with his friends at home in a small tournament at a GameStop feels the same way about winning, about competition as some of our top competitors who are making, $100,000 a year maybe in the top Madden league. So I think everything we do, we want to make sure that it resonates throughout the different levels. Like if you look at the competitive pyramid, right? The bottom is the online play, which is the large subset of players, and then we have our majors and our top-level tournaments. And I think we'll continue to build out both ends of that and hopefully fill those in and really get everybody playing on a competitive scale.
For the most successful esports out there, they're 5v5, they're the MOBAs. Paradoxically, you guys have all the right games, right? You have soccer, you have American football. Those theoretically should be team-based games, but a lot of the competitive play there is 1v1. Are you thinking that you're going to double up on the 1v1, or are you going to also introduce kind of multiplayer? Is that going to become table stakes, or how are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, I think traditionally the esports you think about tend to be 5v5 or 6v6, like Overwatch, League, Counter-Strike. There is a little game that maybe some of you have heard of called PUBG, right, or Fortnite, and this is like all the rage, crushing the charts on Twitch and whatnot. Yep. Those are 1v1 games, right? Look at the oldest esports in StarCraft and whatnot. I think those are 1v1. To us and to me, I think it's not so much about the actual 5v5 of the competition. It's more about the social aspect, right? When you have a 5v5 game, you tend to have more teamwork, more communication, more stories around that. And I think for 1v1 games, you have that social aspect also. We have our games that are our players are all playing, online and competitively there. And really, it's about us being able to tell the stories, whether it's 1v1, whether it's a team. And I think, we'd love a world where we can have 11 versus 11, but, that's not very feasible right now. So really it's about telling that story, creating that, that storyline for competitors and being able to elevate them to the highest level.
Wonderful. Leo, how do you view the launch of these leagues, what EA's doing, what some of the other competitors are doing, your lens as someone who's really close to the viewership of this category?
Yeah, it's first and foremost, it's freaking incredible across the board. It's fun to see companies really embrace the communities that are so passionate about their products and really explore the opportunity that esports has to offer. There are so many folks, and I mentioned earlier, around the world that want to watch this stuff. It's an incredible way to extend your brand, to open up new revenue opportunities, to think about how consumers are interacting with each other more than ever before. I don't know if I mentioned before that more people are watching people play games than are actually playing games right now, and so it's the Wild West right now, and we'll see where it all goes to. But our perspective is pretty simple. How do we think about games? How do we think about community? How do we think about esports with respect to bringing the world just a little bit closer together and getting people to engage in something that they love so much?
You guys have recently started buying exclusive content deals, and do you view this as, Facebook versus Twitch as the new Netflix versus HBO, where it's about getting exclusive access to content, or maybe even producing your own content, as in Amazon spinning up a gaming studio, and perhaps that's something that Facebook should be doing. How do you view that?
Sure. I think that, it's important to kind of grab a foothold however you can, and then run a lot of experiments. We always like to say the journey is 1% finished. Run a lot of experiments, like what's working on the platform, what's not working on the platform. Right. Probably about a year and a half ago, we actually had a lot of non-exclusive deals, and now we're doing exclusive deals in esports as well. Who knows what we're going to be doing tomorrow? Like, it all depends on what's going to become successful on the platform. I don't ever think of things in the context of, you know, us versus them, or, you know, we have to succeed. In order for us to succeed, somebody else has to fail. You know, the beauty is when you have 2.4 billion gamers on the planet, there's plenty of room for people to have different experiences on different platforms with different communities. So, you know, when you have an eye to there's enough room for everyone, and you're lucky enough to have, you know, a platform that has over 1 billion people a day on it, like, you know, there's plenty of things to do and plenty of things to kind of take up our time. We'll see what we get involved in kind of as the days go on. But I would say everything is on the table in terms of, you know, what's the option value for making decisions around building audiences, helping game developers and publishers be successful.
You know, when Leo's talking about 2 billion gamers, I mean, a lot of that number is actually mobile gamers, you know, and not necessarily, not just, I would say, like a Clash Royale, but like a Plants vs. Zombies, or a lot of these kind of older games, Angry Birds and whatnot. I think it's still somewhat of an unresolved question as to whether mobile esports actually becomes a thing. And I'm just curious, from EA's point of view and your large reach when it comes to mobile gaming, like, how do you view that? And do you view that as somewhat of an undiscovered country that right now anyone can have a shot at?
Yeah, as you mentioned, we have a large mobile presence, right? And we're obviously very excited about mobile. I think the analogy is, if we asked everybody to tell us if they own a console or a PC, not everyone would raise their hand. But if I said a smartphone, I'm pretty sure everyone has one, right? It's at the tip of their hands. They have access to it at all times, so people can always be playing. That's very exciting, obviously. And as other countries are starting to develop their technology and get more advanced smartphones, it's a great opportunity there. However, if we look at what we're focused on at the competitive gaming division, it is currently the 3 titles of Madden, FIFA, Battlefield, which are very console heavy. You know, we're obviously looking with an eye towards mobile. You talked about Clash Royale. You know, you talked about, you guys have probably heard of Arena of Valor, which is Tencent's version of League of Legends on mobile. Like, they're absolutely crushing it, right? I think I read an article that just the other day in China, like, one of the pro Arena of Valor players, his transfer fee to another pro team was $1.2 million, right? So this is a new game. It's a new esport. Obviously, people are playing it and are very excited about it, and so are we. I think the trick with mobile is that while everybody has a device, their attention spans are a little shorter than maybe someone playing on console or PC. So the way you structure your game, the way you structure your competitions and your content also have to be mindful of that. So I think that's something that if we were to get into, there are a lot of different factors at play that go into creating something as an esport.
You know, something you mentioned is you're focused on the 3, and I think a focus is a really interesting topic right now, because see, every publisher or game developer is developing games, you know, and I ask myself, I wonder, you know, like in the US we have the 4 major sports, but really it's like 3. How many esports do you think the whole ecosystem can really support?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I don't know if it's so much about how many different esports. I think what we should look at is maybe number of esports per genre, or how many genres there are, right? Because there's something for everybody. There's Hearthstone for card games. There's different competitors in each one, and it seems to be pretty cyclical, right? So back in the day, it was Dota. Dota became League, and then there's Dota 2. Even a game like Overwatch was Team Fortress back in the day, and it just kind of reinvented and improving on the design.
Before Dota, there's Warcraft.
Yes. So I think it's just. Battle Royale is a great example. Like, it really, I want to say came out of nowhere, but it was just, it popped up, and then there's H1Z1, and there's PUBG, and there's so many competitors coming out, and I'm just really excited to see what really smart studios and publishers are going to come up with, because I think we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah. There's plenty of room for different experiences, different opportunities. I totally agree with you. Like, you just never know what's going to pop up. And part of the beauty of the whole thing is with mobile devices, with, you know, technology in general, it's like the anywhere, anytime access to something that you're passionate about, and a community that you can immediately engage in. And so this is a brand new time for all of these different things. And, you know, I think the economics will be there as well.
Now, famously, a few years ago, Facebook went all in on mobile, and you're seeing mobile streaming a lot of funding announcements recently. You have Mob Crush, you have Camcord, you have Caffeine, who just did a big round.
Yep.
What is Facebook's perspective on this? Obviously, you have a huge advantage when it comes to mobile distribution, engineering. Like,
Sure.
how do you view this ecosystem?
Perspective on mobile esports
Yeah,
in particular,
mobile
or just
streaming
esports in general?
and just mobile streaming as that
Sure.
being like a future frontier versus kind of the existing, like Twitch versus Amazon versus Mixer versus you guys.
I think mobile streaming is a massive opportunity, and we're spending a lot of time thinking about it. Again, I keep kind of repeating a lot of very similar themes, but when you think about the multitude of gameplay experiences and the total number of people that are available and how easy it is for them to access content, it makes absolute sense to go after this market. But for us, we tend to have a little bit of a different perspective on why we do the things that we do, and we want to build great things for people first, and then we'll figure out how to monetize stuff or what the audiences are doing later on down the road. And it's something that Facebook talks about all the time, but it would be foolish to ignore mobile streaming and the opportunity that's there. And I love to see the experimentation that's happening in the space.
All right, well, we don't have much time left, and we're supposed to be a really fun panel, so we're going to talk about your favorite personal gaming moments.
Cool.
Leo, you want to start us off?
Oh, I get to start off? Okay. You said moments. You made that plural, which is awesome.
Go for it.
Thank you for that. It was good. When we were talking backstage, the first one that popped in my head was actually, I'll use this one as my only one, which is playing Resident Evil 2 in my dorm room in college and having like 20 people jammed into the room with the lights off, and they're all watching me play, and we're all freaking out at the same time. And if we kind of relate it to this panel, it's like, oh my gosh, this thing of people watching people play games really is something. I didn't really think about it that way until right now, but it was pretty awesome.
It's cool. What about you, Ed?
I think for me is more of like a progression in gaming. And so I think typically when you talk to people who work at publishers and have been in the gaming industry for a long time, they kind of come in because they love games. And I think I got into the industry because I love this concept of esports and watching people play video games. So it's funny because I've been involved for a few years now on the esports side. And my fiance now, let's tell this story of when we were dating and we got to a certain point, and then she said one day, I said, I have to tell you something. And then she was like, what is he going to say? And what I told her was, I like to watch people play video games. And she was like, oh, okay, that's it. But, it's transformed from something where it's almost like a little secret of like, oh, I like to watch people play video games, and it's kind of weird, to this cultural phenomenon where I think there's influencers on YouTube that are lifestyle guys now, and they have so many followers, and you ask kids what they want to be, and they say, Summit 1G or Dr. Disrespect or someone like that, and it's so cool that we progressed there, right? Totally. That it's like, it's a mainstream thing. Yeah. And to me, if we can enable more people to do that and more fans of that, then I think we all win.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks for doing this panel.
Thank you.
Thanks.